Working with seals came a little bit by accident, but working with marine mammals was something that I wanted to do for a long time. I think in terms of deciding a career path, and a fairly uncertain career path it would have been at the time. But marine biology or marine science were things that interested me. I kind of grew up, very much involved in the sea and activities around the sea, and it just seemed like a natural path to try and follow from a career perspective. And why seals? Well, I suppose I started out doing some work on cetaceans as well back in University College Cork, and it's very difficult. They're very difficult species to study, and when it comes to actually, when you're trying to qualify and develop projects, things like working on whales and dolphins can be really quite challenging and quite difficult. It can be difficult to get data, but for seals, it's they're a little more accessible. They have to come into land for various activities and various functions, and because of that, they're a slightly easier species among the marine mammal group to study and to actually collect data, which you're going to need obviously to do a doctorate. So that was really the reason that I was directed towards seals, and the issue that funded the project initially was the issue of seals in fisheries and the impact that grey seals in particular were having on inshore fisheries, and that interaction still continues today. But that project for my PhD was set up by a fisheries working group that was composed of BIM and the Marine Institute, and the Sea Fisheries Boards as well, and National Parks and Wildlife Service. So they were all interested in the issue of seals and fisheries and continue to be interested in it for various reasons, obviously, today. So what you'd have here in the breeding season, basically prior to the breeding season, in July, August, you'll have adults coming and scoping out the terrain here. Now, some of the adults that breed here have been breeding here for generations, and they would be site faithful, so they would return to the site to breed. So you'll have males scoping the territory in order to control it, and then you'll have females who are coming in looking to use that territory in order to have a pup, deliver a pup, and then mate before going back out to sea again. So if you're a fly on the wall and you're sitting on a rock and you're watching one of these breeding beaches, the first thing you'll note probably are males and females starting to swim around into some of these coves that are otherwise abandoned and empty, just in advance, a few weeks in advance of the breeding season. And whatever cues they're using, they're able to recognize particular places and return to those. Even if they're blind in some cases, they can still return to those breeding beaches. So the males will tend to establish themselves either on the shore or in the shallows, or high up on a rock in a prominent position, sort of saying, look, this is me, this is my beat, don't come in here. After that, the females tend to come in. The males will interact with the females and almost in a way get to know who's in their beat. But the females will, pretty soon after that, after some days, the females will actually deliver the pup on the shore in most cases, and then feed the pup for a period of weeks. So you'll see females intermittently either lying and sleeping on the shore alongside the pup or near the pup, or they'll go into the water. Some of them will go and forage. A lot of them will stay relatively close to the shoreline, and then they'll come back in intermittently and feed the pup. In the first few days, the pup does quite a bit of calling to prompt the female to come in. But you tend to see as the pup gets bigger and bigger and fatter from the milk, that you'll see that the pup calls a lot less. And eventually, after a period of 3 or 4 weeks, the pup is really quite big and bloated and has quite a layer of insulating blubber. And at that point, the females will start to wean it off the milk, and the pup becomes more independent. And after about 4 weeks, or a little more than 4 weeks, the pup is on its own in most cases, and they're pretty much abandoned, and they have to find their own way in life. So they're given this big fat store of blubber with which to travel the world, really, and then they're left on their own. And what happens is the female then will mate with the male during the weaning period, or just after the weaning period, and then she'll head to sea. We're starting to get a handle on just the basic biology, the basic population ecology of seal populations in Irish waters, whether it's the harbour seal or the grey seal. And so there's a huge amount that we still don't know, particularly related to what they do when they're in the water. Obviously, when they're on land, it's easier to observe, but when they're in the water, you know, technology is expensive, really, to find out the dynamics of what they do, where they go, how they feed, you know, and also understand the variability in that. I think that absolutely law is very important. You know, the fact that they're legally protected does have some weight, obviously, and a key thing, I think, is communicating that to the wider public. Certainly there's a lot of scope for more education about what that means, what legal protection means. But it certainly has been beneficial, and there's plenty of evidence, you know, from the UK and from other countries where marine mammal species have been protected, that in a lot of cases their populations do better, and people have a greater, I suppose, understanding of why they're important. You know, it also helps to spawn more research to try and understand how best to protect them, how best to manage the populations. So the legal aspect is very important, but it's nothing without education. I think education is absolutely critical, and you know, there have obviously been a lot of initiatives in the past, and I think educating young people particularly, you know, the young people are the future, and if you want species to exist and coexist with humans into the future, you have to work on the children so that their understanding of ecology and of the importance of key predator species, including seals, in the overall biodiversity, so that's carried forward, you know.